On today's episode of Locked On Wild, after listening to Marco Rossi's post-season presser, sure feels like a guy that is on the way out.
Hey, this is Matt Boldy, and you're listening to Locked On Wild.
You're Locked On Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we are your team each and every day, and we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day as well. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. On today's episode of Locked On Wild, burning offseason questions. We'll take a look at three of the biggest. Obviously, Marco Rossi, a big piece of that. But we'll also take a look at the possibility that the Wild look to add another big fish or two. And we'll also talk about Kirill Kaprizov and the potential for him to stick around. Some very interesting comments at his end-of-season presser yesterday as well. My name is Seth Toupal, host of Locked On Wild, joined as always by Alex Micheletti here on a Monday episode of the show. And I do just want to throw out the caveat here, Alex, just for the new listeners to the channel. Just because the season is done, you are still going to be here on Mondays.
Yes.
We'll roll through the off season with Micheletti Mondays. They'll all be Victory Micheletti Mondays because
our annual tradition in the off season.
Yeah, we made it to another Monday. So Minnesota Wild season obviously came to an end last week, which means that we're in full off season mode. And now that I had a chance to kind of weigh in yesterday on my three biggest takeaways from the series, we're going to turn our attention to some of the biggest questions facing this Minnesota Wild team heading into the offseason. And I think it's pretty easy to tell the biggest question that this team is going to face. What happens to Marco Rossi? Obviously put down to the fourth line. And I love that Judd Zulgad put this out on X because he's 100% right. I believe was it Pionk that was taking a pick right before Marco Rossi was selected, or was it
Perfetti?
Thank you. I knew it started with a P. So Cole Perfetti was a huge factor in the Game 7 win for the Winnipeg Jets. That was an absolute nail biter. Marco Rossi played fourth line minutes and seems to have been. It just seems like the coaching staff just doesn't have any patience to try to accommodate him into the system. And Judd said, it's just a great testament to what it takes to win a Stanley Cup playoff series as opposed to how teams lose them. And he's absolutely right. Like, we saw the deficiencies with this team throughout the series, and just it feels like Marco Rossi would have given you more higher in the lineup than Freddie Gaudreau did, which is to say Freddie Gaudreau gave 0 points and trying to create this second line that had a defense orient to it didn't work at all.
No, I mean, as we talked about all season, the Wild were basically a one line team, especially in the playoffs. There was basically just Kirill and Boldy doing the major work like they had done all season. And in the playoffs, you need more and more depth guys to step up. It was nice to see Ryan Hartman do that, but they needed more because Vegas is one of the deepest teams in the league. That's for sure, and their depth showed up against the Wild, especially late in that series.
Yeah, as the series went on, it seemed like the top options for the Golden Knights started to just continually impose their will. And as the series wore on, the top line guys got further and further tired the more they were asked to do. But back to the Rossi side of things, I've seen a lot of people questioning why we've gotten to this point. And it just seems weird that a player who is willing to do whatever the team has asked of them Is, he's a great net front presence. He works as hard as anybody on the roster. And yet, Bill Guerin seems 100% dead set to move him for what I can't figure out. It's for a little different reason, but this feels like the exact same thing that happened to Kevin Fiala, where it's just like if it's a player that Bill Guerin doesn't like, you can't change his mind.
No, he's dead set. And why did they draft him in the first place if they thought he was small? That it's like, you aren't drafting a player just for a regular season. So if when it comes to the postseason, you completely lose faith in a guy that, what was he, the second leading scorer on the team or third?
He was in the top 3.
Top 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what more could he have done? And, he was switching line mates all season basically too. And I get, he didn't have the greatest series, just untimely penalties, but he also had to score 2 goals on the fourth line with 2 anchors on there with Brazeau and Trennan, who don't give you much offensively.
Yeah, I'll even do you one better. If you go back to 2022, when Marco Rossi first emerged on the scene, Rossi is 6th on the team in the games department. He's played the same number of games as Kirill Kaprizov. He's got 45 goals. He's got 56 assists, 101 points. I don't get it. Like, you have a guy who literally the only knock on him is his height. And, we didn't like the way that his game was trending at the end of the season. Well, I don't know. Maybe having him as a bottom 6 grinder type isn't the right way to utilize a guy. There feels to be a lot of, this guy isn't fitting this particular role that we have the way we do it. And so there's no chance that he can be part of it. And that doesn't feel like the right way to do it.
No. And now you're seeing all these deals that could be comparable for him to say, hey, this is what the market is setting. And they just don't seem interested in it all. We saw the other day, Matt Coronado with Calgary, got 7 years for 6.5 there for $44.5 million deal. And I don't know if the Wild want to stomach that for Rossi. I'm sure his agents are going to try to ask for what Boldy got.
Yeah, well, so especially with that Coronado deal. And the rumors are that Rossi turned down a 5x5. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's got a smart agent. He had his best season for sure. And all these other guys are getting more than what the Wild are offering. So, something that could be interesting that we might have to watch is, after the success that St. Louis had by offer sheeting, Broberg and Holloway, maybe a team will try to offer sheet Rossi. That would be very interesting to see if the Wild would match that or not.
Yeah, and for the crowd that wonders, why wouldn't you take a shorter deal to try to, further prove your value? Well, as Russo pointed out in his article once the season was over and kind of summing up the exit interviews, if Rossi's just going to be a bottom 6 guy for this team, he's not going to have any value after his next contract is done.
Heck no. And why would he want to sign up for that again? Why would he? He's not where he's supposed to be. If he's going to be in the NHL.
He does not owe the team anything. Like, the team gave him a chance to get to the NHL level, and the team feels like, he'd really be in position to be a good NHLer if he'd only do this. Like, he's done it all.
Right.
He has done everything that he has been asked, and it still just doesn't seem like it's enough. So It feels very likely, and we'll dive into this while the playoffs are still going on. It feels very likely that he has played his last game.
Yeah, he wasn't sugarcoating it, which I was very curious to see what he was going to say, and he let it all out, which is good for him. He didn't have to hide behind any PR kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. The the draft is going to be interesting because they gave up so much for Jiricek, and they do not have a first this season or second. So yeah, it's just they gave up a lot for a guy that barely played and now will be coming off a major injury too.
You would think that there would be a healthy market for a guy like Rossi, whose only knock is that he is a little shorter in stature. So maybe you do recoup a first-round pick this year as part of a package. Or, I don't know, maybe Bill Guerin just takes the first person that calls and says, we're just taking the first offer on the board like they did with Fiala.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that.
Right.
You gotta at least explore the market. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
Drive it up. Speak.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that is just one tip of the iceberg, because I don't know about you, Alex, but it feels like this roster is in need of a little bit of a shakeup. And that's not because, like, again, the Wild didn't get embarrassed on the ice against the Golden Knights. But this is now the fourth straight season that you have mostly had this group. And this will be year 4. You have 2 playoff appearances that were first round exits, and a year in which you failed to make the playoffs because you started so bad that your coach got fired. So there's a lot to break down as to what this roster looks like. We'll dive further into it as we continue today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Monarch Money. Have you ever checked your bank account and wondered, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it is very easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, codename LOCKEDONNHL, for 50% off your first year. Tonight's episode of Locked On Wild is also brought to you by Game Time. The Stanley Cup finals are nearing us. And if you've never been to any level of NHL playoff games, it's unlike anything else. The intensity, the speed, the energy in the building, it's all next level. And thanks to Game Time, getting in the door is easier and more affordable than ever. Game Time is the fastest way to grab playoff tickets, even for those must-see matchups. Prices actually go down the closer you get to puck drop. With last-minute deals, you can save up to 60%. Plus, the app even shows you panoramic seat views so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to like and subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. And coming up for you tomorrow, we'll have some breakdown of Bill Guerin and John Hines' end of season presser, which I have a feeling is going to be spicy.
Get your popcorn ready.
Yeah. So we'll have some reaction for you. We're going to actually have 2 episodes for you coming up tomorrow, because I like to do this every year once the Minnesota Wild have been eliminated, is just look at who's left and where are we at? Are there Minnesota ties still in it? So that's coming up for you tomorrow. And then once the Guerin and Hines pressers have finished, I'll gather my thoughts and we'll react accordingly for you. Alex, before we dive into potential for a major trade, I did just want to get to the Kirill Kaprizov thoughts from earlier here today. It was a pretty good quote that Kaprizov supplied that made it seem as though he's leaning. Now, again, heavy emphasis on leaning because that doesn't imply a decision has been made. But it seems pretty evident that he's leaning towards staying. Joe Smith tweeting out earlier yesterday, Kirill Kaprizov didn't come out and say he'll sign July 1st, but he talked about how much he loves it here, how he believes they can win, which is the most important thing to him. He said, quote, "We'll see. I love everything here. It should be all good." He said Minnesota feels like his second home. So take that for what you will, but that sounds like that doesn't sound like a guy who is saying like, I'm going to explore my options. You know, I'd like to come back, but we'll see how it goes. That sounds like a guy that would like to see this play out with him staying in Minnesota. Or maybe I'm reading too much into it.
No, I mean, he can get the most money and the most, length of a deal here in Minnesota compared to anyone anywhere else. And you see him, I saw him on social media all over the place, people taking pictures with him. And he seems to really enjoy Minnesota and the lifestyle. And I'm sure it's pretty similar to what it is back home. Or close.
Yeah, pretty low key, lower key than New York or Manhattan or any of those other places. Joel Eriksson Ek having core surgery. Man,
I mean, he started the year getting hurt. He got his nose broken nose, and he was just battling injuries left and right. Foot and now core, whatever is in there. For what he pulled or tore. Yeah, that guy, sacrifices his body this season for sure. Basically, he was the only center, true full-time center.
Which means that there's going to need to be, it just feels like there's going to need to be a little bit of a shakeup. Again, the Wild played a very competitive series with the Vegas Golden Knights. Although for the crowd that says, well, why are we celebrating that? I hear you. You want to go deeper in. And I think the flip side of that is to acknowledge there's a lot of work to do to become one of those teams that's remaining after round one.
Yeah, you watch it happen, and all the teams that are still left have depth, and their depth scoring scores. They don't miss the net. They don't put it right into the belly of the goalie. They shoot and score. So that's something that the Wild are gonna have to take a look at again, even though they do it every year, is the depth, because these other central teams are, the top dogs that are right now are better, and there's up and coming teams too. Watch out, Utah. They look like they're getting a squad assembled of young talent for sure.
So should we just pencil Brock Nelson in at this point?
Yeah, no kidding. Right. A guy that's 33 right now, going to be 34 for next season, and you can see the foot speed is starting to really, really decline. And it's going to be interesting to see because, like I said, he doesn't skate very well.
I mean, he can't skate any worse than Brazo at this point. Like, I feel bad even going that route, but like it was noticeable. Guy averaged 8 minutes a night.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was, and Brazo was in the East Coast League for a while, so that tells you all you need to know. It definitely, whatever he did in Boston, it was a mirage because it came over here, and it was worse than what he was doing in Boston.
There was an article during the season by Hockey Wilderness / Zone Coverage, and basically said, well, why was Brazo so effective in Boston? And the summation was, well, because he can't skate, and neither could they. So he fit right in.
They were a very slow team.
Oh my
very
gosh.
Slow team. Yeah.
I don't want to hear that. But like, reality of the situation is it feels like there needs to be a little bit of a shakeup, because this roster has been run back for the most part since 2021, 2022. It seems like Bill Guerin has been chasing that for these last few years, and you've had varying levels of success. All first round exits when they made the playoffs. They had a season last year where they didn't. The issues on the roster are the same that they were ever since Kevin Fiala left. You don't have a second line that's capable of really consistently offering you anything. You can't patchwork those holes. You can't patchwork those spots in the roster. You have to find legitimate ways to fill those top 6 spots in your lineup.
Yeah, and we'll see. They're going to probably give Yurov all the opportunity to make the team, but that's asking a lot for a young guy like that. I know he's played some center in the past, but I'm sure they would try to stick him on a wing, maybe that second line, just because there's so much responsibility as a center in the league, as we know, and that might get to a young guy really fast. So at least give him an opportunity on the wing.
Bold of you to assume he makes the team out of camp.
Right. Well, if he doesn't, they got that clause in his contract that said that he would go back to the KHL. And then it's like, if you send him back to the KHL, good luck ever getting him signed again. They give you the one. It seems like they give your company a one-time thing, and if you blow it, good luck.
Yeah, if he were to not be put on the NHL roster, he's not coming here.
Right. He's like, back. I'll go back to KHL.
So, Billy, I beg of you, don't tempt fate. Don't go down that road. Just put somebody in position to succeed.
Right. Right. You don't want it to keep cycling and shuffling in and out.
No. Do you think we see a defenseman moved? Because there's a lot of money tied into that decor with Brock Faber's extension kicking in, with Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin, Jake Middleton. That's a lot of money tied into that top 4. And you've got Zeev Boyum. You've got David Jiricek, who you would hope will play impactful roles on this roster come next season. So do you move on from a longtime vet to free up a good amount of cap money to do something else? Because as we'll talk about extensively here throughout the offseason, like it's not cut and dry that you've got $14.7 million in cap space. Like it doesn't work that way because Faber's deal kicks in. Now you don't have to worry about a Rossi extension, but as I've been talking about extensively, you're going to have to worry about a Filip Gustavsson extension because you don't know what you have with Jesper at this point. And if you commit to him full time and it doesn't work out, you're in a bad way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's where it gets a little nerve wracking with Jesper. Just everything that he went through this season, it was a nightmare. And going back to the decor, I mean, maybe Jacob Middleton, just because they're gonna want. I mean, they put so much effort and draft capital into David Jiricek, and it didn't go well for him this year.
No.
Obviously he had to deal with multiple organizations, but it just didn't. It wasn't good enough for them apparently, and that I'm sure that's tough to hear, but it's just that happens.
Well, and if you don't get a requisite look at what he brings to the table, and when we did see him play, he looked fine.
Right.
But if you don't get a huge sample size of him this year, even though you have been adamant that this is a long-term project, then people start to get nervous.
Right, because they put so much in. I mean, he's the reason why they don't have a first-round pick and other high picks, and to rupture your spleen is, oh my goodness, I couldn't imagine going through that and what the recovery time is for that. And
no,
if you'd be interested, in playing for Iowa all year again, I don't think he would sign up for that. He'd say, at least let me be the seventh defenseman. I can't go through another year of just losing, because the Iowa Wild wasn't even close to making the playoffs.
They were not remotely competitive. It's going to be interesting to see. And just the final thing that I'll say before we move on to just looking at a couple of other things on this roster. Forward group. Like, obviously there are going to be a couple of new faces, because although I hate that I have to even entertain the possibility, because Gustav Nyquist said he would, quote, love to come back after how the season played out. Also said that he couldn't see the puck on the offsides.
That's tough to hear from a guy that's almost 1,000 games into his NHL career. You're not a rookie; you're a long-term veteran, and of course you would want to keep getting paid. Since that's sure, we'll keep going at a different residence now.
I hope Billy was not listening at that point in the presser. Because please no.
Right.
Do you think we'll see one of the forwards moved? I mean, I think you saw enough from Foligno that I think
he was their best player or best forward all season when guys were hurt.
I mean, Ryan Hartman looked fantastic during the playoffs. He was giving you a fight and an edge all series.
When it looked like in the regular season they were ready to get rid of him just because of the penalty that he took against Ottawa and bouncing Tim Stutzel's head onto the ice. That was crazy.
That was rough.
Yeah,
but like he maybe has kind of played his way back into favor. I was surprised to hear Matt Zuccarello say that this is likely going to be his final season.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Coming
He'll be,
up.
38 when the season keeps going. Yeah, that's tough to hear, especially just with everything going on, right?
Yeah.
The
one that's going to be interesting is the one that you want to move is probably the one you can't. Yakov Trenyan.
Yeah. And do they want to put the fans through another buyout? I don't know. That's no.
I would rather not.
And like we've talked about in the past, hey, call up Anaheim. Teams with just it's crazy. It's crazy how many how some teams don't go to the cap. Right at the edge there. Some of them are way below.
Dangerously low,
right.
The danger zone, as we like to say. That's going to be another big one, because there's actually a little bit of money to spend, not a ton, but it feels like there just needs to be a change to a little more of an up to pace style. You can't keep trying to limit teams by having one line that can score and three lines that have to defend. It doesn't work that way.
Makes zero sense. Yeah, it leads to not winning hockey a lot, right? And that's why the teams that are remaining in this playoff, I mean, they have depth up the wazoo. I mean, you could say, Dallas. Dallas has the most experience, and the Wild just need some of their young guys to really mature and act like pros. And it's tough. These playoff series that the Wild grinded. You could tell. I mean, some of the games they were just really on fumes, and they kept pushing, and they seemed to believe in each other. And that last game, game 6, they just they had a bad bounce early, and it was
all it took.
Yeah, all it took, and Vegas smelled blood in the water for sure.
Let's finish by let's just talk a little bit about Kaprizov's next deal, because obviously there are some concerns regardless. So we'll just lay them out as we finish, because that's obviously going to be a big offseason question too. So we'll talk about Kaprizov, the contract, the future, All of it coming up as we finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Today's episode of Locked On Wild is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives flexibility by connecting businesses with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com to connect you with top talent and grow your business today. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, we thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure to like and subscribe. We've got a listener survey that will be coming out here within the next week or so. Just getting some general feedback on the show and ideas you may have for offseason topics, guests, things along that line. So be on the lookout for that. When it is done, when I'm finished putting it together, I should have it done by the end of the week. We'll put the link in the show description so that you can follow along with it and fill it out here over the course of the off season, so that we've got some time to implement some things that that listeners would like to see. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for a Kirill Kaprizov extension, Alex. We talked about how it sounds like Kirill likes it here. He's happy here, wants to hang around. How concerned are you, based off of how the last couple of seasons have gone, about his injury situation and committing to a long-term deal at this point, given what we know about the injuries that he's sustained?
Yeah, I mean, that might help more trying to get it done here right now, because he's had some major lower body injuries, that can easily tear again or strain, and so you think he'd be motivated to just say, "Hey, I'm paying this," and then we'll circle back. But it's I mean, what more can you say, right?
Yeah, I would like to think that, given what the team knows about him, his medicals, that it makes it more likely even that he stays here. But he's 28.
The fact that he had the surgery in New York too, so they basically he went out of his way to get different different doctors for this surgery, and something tells me it goes all the way back to the Logan Stanley hit, because the way he did the splits almost with his body and his legs, it just seems like that's just going to always linger for him if he gets hit in the wrong spot or moves, in a weird way as well.
Yeah, that was hideous. That whole play. And I mean, Logan Stanley is still in the league, but kind of.
Yeah, no need to go WWE on the bit and while you're playing. Makes zero
Please
sense.
Don't.
Right.
I don't know, does this make Kirill more likely to sign a shorter term deal? If he signs a 4-year deal to just see how it goes and then maybe gives it one more crack at a long-term deal after that. I don't really know.
Yeah, it's been tough to get his reaction. He said, of course it stinks. But he, I know people hate to hear it, but they gave Vegas a good fight. At points it looked like, oh no, it's gonna be a sweep, but they got to 6. So they're right there. They just they need to add a couple pieces. Gus stood on his head, I thought. For large stretches of the series, he outplayed Adin Hill, and Vegas took advantage on the special teams. That's how they won.
Yeah, that's why I keep banging the drum for Filip Gustavsson, because that's another piece of this too, is that if you are building around now that the buyouts, Parisi and Suter, the big cap hits are gone, we would consider this the window. Maybe not this upcoming season, but definitely 2026, 2027 and beyond. You can't really afford,
because the rest of the division is going to get a lot better. Like I mentioned,
yeah.
I mean, look out for Utah. They seem to be, if their young guys can pull it together, that's a team that's going to be right there for sure.
You can't really have goaltending be a question mark. The Wild have been very fortunate that they have been able to lean upon Filip Gustavsson as much as they have, and that he has performed as well as he has. Because look at Colorado. Look at the lengths that they went to try to get that righted. And now the long-term deal that they gave to Mackenzie Blackwood, and
they gave it to they gave him without him like really playing there. That was
yeah.
crazy that they just, here we go. I mean, look at Pittsburgh is regretting the Tristan Jarry contract. The man, I mean, they just sent him to the AHL at points, which is just crazy for a veteran goalie like that.
So it's like, that's part of the equation too that you have to have. And so, if I said this on yesterday's episode, so the everydayers have already heard me preach this, but let's say it takes Jesper 2 years. You've got Filip Gustavsson locked up for this upcoming season, and that's it. If you don't do something with him to bridge that gap, what are you going to bring in a free agent goalie that you have no idea what you're getting?
Right. And not a ton of great ones out there either.
No.
So it's I mean, you can draft a guy, but that's going to take, I mean, some goalies can take forever to, 5-6 years to actually get in the league. And, obviously there's only one spot in the net. So it's very interesting.
And no, for those that watch the Jets series, it does not guarantee you success, although the Jets did persevere in Game 7. But boy, Connor Hellebuyck to the ends of the earth and back.
Giving up the softies. I mean, the Joseph one for sure. I was like, what was going on there? And I mean, they are so lucky that they scored with that 1.6 seconds left, or else, I mean, Hellebuyck would really get it from the fan base.
The trade calls would they would be more than a little whisper at that point, considering what his playoffs have looked like the last couple of years. So all told, it just means that there's a ton to talk about here at Locked On Wild. So we've got you covered with a very full off season. So make sure to stay with us. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already, so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the week. We've got new episodes for you every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.